Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Well, hello, welcome. I'm so happy you're here listening to this episode today. Have you ever wondered if your meditation or your prayers or your energy makes an impact? Well, today you're going to get some clues because we are talking to Cynthia Jurs. She is a remarkable woman who has an incredible story to tell. In 1990, she climbed a path in the Himalayas and met Rinpoche living in Nepal, a venerated Lama. And she asked him, how can I bring healing and protection to the earth? And this Lama told her to place sacred Earth Treasure Vases made of clay and with healing prayers and potent medicinal items and protection items inside of them. So filling them up with symbolic offerings from around the world, bringing in groups of people together from around the world to make these offerings into these vases, and then placing these vases in sacred sites all around the world, making a mandala, a matrix of energy to help protect the earth. And I know this might sound a little bit hokey, but it is a beautiful practice and a powerful practice, and I think something that our earth is desperately crying for. When asked what is the most needed thing to save our world, Thich Nhat Hanh replied, "We need to hear within us the sounds of the earth crying." And I think hearing that sound and heeding its call is what is going to change our future. It's going to change our relationship not only to Mother Earth, to Gaia, or Pachamama, but also to ourselves. And when we recognize ourselves as sacred vessels created from the earth, holding within us this power for global healing, for connected consciousness, for awakening, we can bring all of this goodness, all of this energy, all of this positive intention and intelligence that we hold as creatures of the earth, as humans, human beings, and bring it back to our Mother Earth for her healing. And that is what we are talking to Cynthia about today. For 30 years, she has been a practitioner of Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism and has been on this journey all across the world, planting these sacred vessels in very particular spots. And you can read her beautiful book, a biography, Summoned by the Earth. It's a wonderful, wonderful offering, and I can't wait to share her teachings and her energy and some of her stories with you today. So hang on, because we are diving straight into this beautiful interview with Cynthia. If you're in the New York area, you can find her at the end of September in upstate New York and in New York City, giving talks and meditations and a retreat. So find those links in our show notes. Highly recommended. You can also connect with her online every month during the full moon and on other occasions to join into her meditation and also learn healing practices for our earth. So let's get started. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I cannot wait for this episode today. We have an amazing guest with us, Russell.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me on the show today. That's so sweet of you.
Well, I knew you would want to meet our guest who wrote this beautiful book, Summoned by the Earth, Becoming a Holy Vessel for Healing Our World. and honorary Lama Cynthia Jurs. Hello, Cynthia. This is an amazing, gorgeous book that you have compiled and written and shared all of your, I mean, probably not all of your work, but a large portion of your work is in the book. How are you
It
today?
does seem like you took copious notes of your experience, which is really what we want to get into. You did quite a thing over the last 30 years.
Indeed. Thank you, Harmony and Russell. It is so fun to be with you today. I'm really happy that we can have this conversation. And thanks for reading my book. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a life, journey, 30 plus years. There's a lot in the book, a lot of threads woven in, covering a lot of ground, literally and figuratively.
Yes, both.
Well, I think maybe one thing that we should start with
Yeah.
for our viewers at home is we're going to be referencing ETVs quite a lot. And I wonder if you could just start with a definition for that. What is an ETV?
Well, I usually um, only use ETV as an abbreviation for sort of convenience with people who know. So I talk a lot about Earth Treasure Vases. And that is what ETV stands for, Earth Treasure Vase, or vase, as the case may be. And these are holy vessels. They're from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. They're clay pots that are filled with prayers and offerings, symbolic of bringing healing and protection to the earth.
Hmm.
And they come from originally from the 8th century in Tibet, when Guru Rinpoche, or Padmasambhava, who was the historical figure that brought Buddhism to Tibet,
Mm-hmm.
um, he revealed a lot of teachings that some of which would only be really relevant in times to come. And he predicted that in the future there would be times of imbalance, disharmony,
Yeah.
um, and the kind of unraveling of the web of life, like we're seeing today. And so this is a practice that he revealed back then, and then basically kind of hid it until the time when it was needed. And then it was revealed by several different lineage lamas, great masters, who are called terten, or treasure revealers.
Hmm.
And it's an incredible, facet of the Tibetan Buddhist way in which Tibetan Buddhist teachings are transmitted and brought forward. But this is one of those practices, and yeah, I was amazed to receive it. And the circumstances around my receiving that practice were quite extraordinary, and that's how the book begins.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly is extraordinary. There's a map here in the book that showcases the I'm going to say dozens of places around the Earth in which the ETVs have been
I think there's
ritualistically and ceremoniously buried with great honor. And I wonder if you could tell us the circumstances in which you were told to do this, which is really sort of totally extraordinary.
Right. Right. So this was back in 1990, and I was in the process of kind of a big awakening to what was happening with the earth, um, including the reality of the radioactive waste that's coming off of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is here in New Mexico, near where I live
Mm.
in Santa Fe, and the poisoning, of the planet
Mhm.
through those kinds of unbelievably terrible substances, and then all the other kind of poisoning that's going on, and it was already starting back then, not just the poisoning of the waters and the land and things like that, but the deforestation and the lack of um, responsibility for all of the living systems of life on Earth, and the imbalances that were starting to show themselves through things like raging forest fires and droughts and all of that. And then, of
Mhm.
course,
Mhm.
the imbalance within human populations too, of the stress and the oppression and and all the rest. So, and then of course, more recently, we have the deep signs of climate change and disease and everything that's going on that I don't need to remind you of. But
The
back
calamity of our times.
exactly. So even back then, this was dawning in me. And
Mm,
I have always had this really strong feeling of love and connection to the earth and to life on earth, and so I had this incredible opportunity to go to Nepal and meet an old wise man living in a cave, this 106-year-old Lama who
beautiful.
was the teacher of a young Lama who is my contemporary, who wanted to and was willing to take me there to meet him. And so I was trekking up the mountain in the Himalayas to this remote region of Nepal, when it dawned on me, like, oh my God, I have the chance to meet the proverbial old wise man in the cave and ask him a question, you know? And I mean, I was just a little bit slow to realize the moment, and there I was, and then I had to figure out what my question was, and I wanted it to be something that was meaningful not just to myself but to others, because you don't get that opportunity very often. So I asked him, what came to me was to ask him, what can we do to bring healing and protection to the earth? And I didn't know about the practice of the Earth Treasure Vases at the time. I just knew I had a lot of respect for this particular spiritual tradition and culture, and I was kind of burning with, what are we going to do, everybody? This is this time that we're living in, and so anyway, I asked him that question after having lived there for a couple of weeks and getting to know him and having the experience of being there. And then the moment came, and he said, well, even just one person can bring benefit to the whole area around where they live.
Mm.
And he said, but you need to get these earth treasure vases and you need to put them in the ground, and they will do that work.
Why do you think he pointed to you to do that?
Well, because I was the one to ask that question. I was the only one asking that question in front of him. And so it was like, okay, here's what you can do.
What do you think happened to you through the course of your life that in 1990 that was a pressing question for you?
Well, good question. I as I say, ever since I was a child, I loved Mother Nature. I loved the living earth, and the flowers and the animals and the trees and the waters and all of that. And I just felt like this is such a gift that we have been given to live this life on earth,
Mhm.
and then it just breaks my heart when I see the suffering that is going on, or the imbalance, as I say. And so I was carrying that, and I had a deep interest in indigenous cultures who are so connected to the earth, and I always had that, but I was very drawn to Buddhism. And so I was kind of trying to find my way. At the time, I don't know if you've heard about the people from Colombia, the Kogi people, and others from other tribes from the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia. These are an indigenous tribal group that considers themselves to be, they call themselves the elder brothers and sisters, and we're the youngers. And their job is to maintain harmony in the heart of the world, which is how
Mhm.
they refer to their region. And they were
Beautiful.
seeing the signs, of this imbalance, not just in their own area. I mean, that's where they live, but everywhere, And they were
Mhm.
really pointing to the dominant culture that we come from as being very out of touch and really destroying the balance, and that the first message that came from them to us arrived in around 1990 or so. And
Mm.
there was a film called The Elder Brother's Warning,
Mm.
and a book also. And there's been another documentary done more recently. But I read that and I was very affected by it. And um, and then Joanna Macy, who is another teacher of mine, mentor of mine, who many people know about. She's written a
So
number of books and is also a Buddhist scholar,
yeah.
but has very much engaged in what I would call sacred activism, or
Yeah.
what others might call engaged Buddhism. She, at the time, around that same time, she was really focusing on what she was referring to as nuclear guardianship, and the
Mm.
issue of radioactive waste, and the need to guard the land and our communities from these poisons
Mm.
for a very long time, because they last for so long, and the effects that they have on the web of life are um, like damaging to our own DNA.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it was a combination of a lot of things that just came to a head, and I felt it in my own body. I just feel like I'm not separate from the earth,
Mm.
and so
Yeah.
um, I don't know if that answers your question, but
It
Yeah.
certainly does. I want to just dig a little deeper, and I because often in yoga though we'll learn, the Patanjali will say that, after trying everything else and finding no success, here finally yoga is revealed. And I wonder if that happened for you, if there was a moment where you felt you needed to take refuge, and then Buddhism revealed itself to you. Like, what was going on for you?
I was always on a spiritual seeking journey,
Mm.
trying to find the way, trying to find the path, trying to find that source of refuge. And um, eventually I did find Buddhism, which made a lot of sense to me, because in Buddhism, we are not really pointing to an external God, but we're pointing to that nature again of our own
Mm.
selves, our Buddha nature, which is like accessible if we peel back the layers and get still enough, quiet enough to hear and feel our own Buddha nature, our own awakened wisdom nature that all of us have, that is the Buddha was pointing to, but is something that we all have. So
Mm.
the practice of meditation and yoga, these kinds of things can um, connect us to that, and then
Mm.
it's a process of just recognizing it over and over again.
Mm.
And so I did find Buddhism. I found several threads, several paths and lineages of Buddhism. Thich Nhat Hanh was really my root teacher, who comes out of the Zen tradition from Vietnam, and really, you know, spoke deeply about what he calls engaged Buddhism, the
Mhm.
need to engage our practice in what is meaningful, and not just kind of, you know, sit in our own caves,
Yeah.
especially in these times, right?
Mhm.
So I really appreciated that very much about Thich Nhat Hanh. And then I found the Dharma in the Tibetans, which
Mhm.
also moved me very deeply. And I
Mhm.
was already on that path when I met the old Lama in the cave. The old
Okay.
Lama's name was Charak Rinpoche, or Kushuk Mangdon. Um, yeah, so one thing led to another, and when I got the treasure vases, you know, I was very overwhelmed because the assignment was really huge, right? It was,
Mhm.
Yeah. It was
I
enormous. There was 30, was there, in the first?
yes, there
generation.
was the first
Yeah.
generation. There
Okay.
was 30 that came to me originally. I mean, the lamas who made them asked, "How many do you want?" And I mean, I just didn't know what to say. It's like, 10,000. Didn't seem proper to say that many,
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
say,
10's good.
yeah,
10's, thank you. 10's
25
good.
was what I came up with. And then they sent me 30. By the time I had, finished the 29th vase, which took a while, um, then there were people saying, well, there's all these other locations that need this.
Mhm.
And so then I received another 40 that were actually made at the same time, but were about
Mhm.
half the size. And so then we had 70 that we were working with. And then as we were nearing the end of those 70, we crafted a third generation with a Native American potter here in New Mexico who taught us how to make them in our own way. So people came and to a retreat, and we each crafted our own treasure vase for the location that people had identified they wanted to take it.
Oh.
Oh,
And so
amazing.
altogether, there's 93,
Mhm.
and there's probably about 25 that are in process right now, like being stewarded to their locations.
Mhm.
And we are considering doing a fourth generation because as I'm talking about all of this, more and more people are kind of going, oh, wow, let's get involved. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was there, criteria for where to put the treasure vases exactly? Like, could I put one in my backyard if I wanted?
yeah, actually, we decided pretty early on, like, let's take them to the places that are really connected to the commons, like, yeah, it's wonderful you can put it in your backyard, but you can maybe get another one. There are other lineages that make these, so you could
Yeah.
put one in your backyard. But these particular ones are really for the whole of
Mhm.
the earth, and they have gone all over the world. And there is a
Mhm.
map in the book
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a
It's a
list in
lovely
the back
map,
of the
yeah.
book that shows where they've all gone. And we have a website that tells all those stories too, and more detail than I had room for in the book, even though the book is pretty thick. Yeah, so it's been amazing, and we couldn't figure it out in terms of where they should go with our kind of rational mind. It was
Mhm.
just um, so overwhelming, really, and so it began to be a process of very deep listening and
Mm.
listening to Gaia, listening to the earth, and also being kind of guided by the treasure vases themselves because they really are very kind of potent, powerful objects that are already
Mm.
filled with so much powerful medicine that um, they have kind of a life of their own. In fact, it sounds a little, maybe odd to say that, but it's really true. And so they guided us, and then, the meditation that we do every full moon also is a
Mhm.
way of listening deeply to what the earth is calling for. And people would come forward and say, what about here? And it's really a matter of where we are each called, summit,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
to bring this practice. Yeah.
You described, for example, in your book, an episode where you had finished a burial, and forgive me if I forget which location. Maybe you could help us. Is you had left the burial, and it coincided with the emergence of a queen bee, kind of, and the swarm of bees kind of escorting her to her new home, and it was a kind of renewal, and it's so much. Uh, Sort of it had that kind of very Tibetan synchronicity about it. Like that this is kind of how people discover their past lives in a way is being paying attention to the synchronicity.
Mm.
And I wonder if you could describe that moment, but also maybe other moments that are like that, like the kind of where you really understood that you were on the right path.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. No, that's happened so many times, Russell. It's like, you know, the world opens up and you start to operate on some other levels that are
Mm.
beyond kind of ordinary um, operating system. And it's like, I think I have a chapter in there called Sacred Time. You know, when you enter into deep ceremony or prayer or meditation, you sometimes have that feeling like, how much time has passed? Has it been an hour or 3 hours or,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's like that so often, and then the synchronicities start happening where you could never have predicted, how the connections would be made, how we would get from A to B, or, the kinds of signs that would come along to go, yes, you're
Mhm.
on the path, you
Mm.
know.
Mhm.
So yeah, that story actually took place in Delphi,
Mm.
In Greece, yeah.
in Greece.
Amazing.
And that's really the last story in the book. It
Mhm.
was a more recent, one of the most recent pilgrimages. There have been some since then, but it was a very important pilgrimage because Delphi is actually the place where Gaia came from.
Mhm.
Mm.
Greek mythology. That was her home, and the
Mhm.
priestesses of the original Delphi were priestesses of Gaia, and the oracle was a woman who would access the wisdom of the earth.
Mhm.
You know? And then it became very popular, and that whole place then eventually was overtaken by the patriarchal structure of ancient Greece, and that began, a whole different story. And I write about that in the book, but we had an incredible experience to take a treasure vase there as an offering to Gaia directly,
Oh,
and to
beautiful.
reclaim the connection for
Mm.
ourselves today, and to bring healing to that whole system that took us down this path in Western civilization of such oppression and abuse of our relationship to the earth. Um, and so when we buried the treasure vase in that region, it was a huge fulfillment for me. I had dreamed about it for a long time, and we did it under amazing circumstances. And at the end, we were sort of finished, but we were pausing for some nourishment, and we're just about to take out our picnic when this swarm of bees appeared right over our heads.
Wow.
And one of my dear colleagues, Nicole Monieri, is a beekeeper and a priestess
Oh,
of the Mediterranean traditions, and she just exclaimed, "Oh my God, there's this swarm!" And what it means is that the queen has come out for the one and only time to be in the sun, and all the bees swarm around her, and the scouts go looking for the next place where they're going to relocate, and then they find it, and then they come back, and then they gather her up in the swarm and move to the new location. So when they move in the direction that they move in is an indication, if you're an oracle, of things to come. So in this case,
wow.
they all moved in the direction of the east, and
Wow.
the queen, was in their midst, and it was just like this ecstatic moment.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
yeah, and so um, anyway, that was a really beautiful story. There's another really incredible story from earlier on, way earlier on. I took a treasure vase down to the coast of Oaxaca in Mexico.
Mhm.
And oh gosh, now I'm thinking of all these stories I want to tell you.
Yeah, please.
This is a good one. It's a kind of a short one. So there was a hurricane that had really destroyed the coast of Oaxaca. My husband is a sea turtle he works with sea turtle
Oh.
protection and does a lot of other things too. But he had a project of sea turtle protection in that area. And so we were really involved and concerned and wanted to bring a treasure vase there. And there's a place on the coast of Oaxaca called Punta Cometa, and it's a point that sticks out into the ocean. That's a sacred place held by the local indigenous peoples for many generations. And after a lot of ceremony and connection with various curanderos in that region, we decided to take the vase to Punta Cometa. And so we went out there, and this is a rocky point, and we got all the way out to the very point where it went into the ocean, and we hadn't really found our spot, and we couldn't dig in the rock. And so I opened up my backpack and I pulled out the treasure vase and I held it up, and I rang my bell and invited, some guidance.
Mhm.
And in that very moment, this whale breached right off the point.
Wow.
The spray, came in onto me and the treasure vase, and then another whale, and then a pelican flew straight towards me, flew through the spray and right towards me, and it was like, oh my gosh, and
Mhm.
and I knew in that moment, oh, I saw a spot back there. There was nowhere else to go but back. And I
Yeah.
said, I saw a spot. And we turned around and went back. And my people I was with were ahead of me. And I got up to where it was like the rocky part kind of eased into earth. And as I got up to that point, I saw this literal path shining with light.
Mm.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and then the path led to a huge saguaro cactus that was still standing from the hurricane, the only one left that was still there. It was a huge, big, huge, tall cactus, and the path ended at the base of that cactus. And um, we walked. I saw it. I just saw
Yeah.
exactly where it needed to go. And when we started to dig, we were thinking it was going to be very hard, and the ground just opened up just like that.
Wow.
It was so beautiful.
Mm.
And then we buried the vase. They're supposed to be buried in a way that would never be discovered. It's not like we're drawing attention to this. It's just like,
Mhm.
this is where this is. About 5 years later, my husband, partner, and I went back, and it was sunset, and we decided to just do a little meditation. And we stopped there, and we were just kind of settling ourselves, and all these people started to come, and they were quiet, and they were arriving for sunset at the punta, and
Wow.
and we were like, oh my goodness, this is drawing this treasure vase is drawing people here now.
Mhm.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
even to this day, that was many years ago now. To this day, now people go for sunset at in that place, and it's a
Wow.
Wow.
that people know about. The area has gotten a lot more built up now, and people know about the area, and so they go there.
Mm.
But it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that
Mm.
happened. There's another story, and then I'll end, and you can take us wherever else you want to go. There was another story. And I swear, I mean, every location has its own story, and that's what
Mhm.
makes
Yeah.
it so amazing, because um, the way in which things unfold is so incredible. Um,
Mm.
Yeah.
but I went and took a treasure vase to the area around Avebury in England.
Oh, yeah. I've been there. I was thinking of asking about Avebury.
Yeah,
Mm.
so the standing stones in that region,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Just to for harmony's sake, maybe some of our
Stonehenge?
listeners at home, is that England, Greater Britain is connected by way lines
Yeah.
to sacred sites throughout the island, and
Mhm.
Avebury has a way line connection to Stonehenge
Mm.
and to other stone sites around the island.
actually, there's a ley line that goes from England. It's called the Michael line, and it goes from England through France all the way to Delphi.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's these ways in which the energy moves through the earth, and the sites that are on those lines, those meridians, and in Australia they
Mhm.
call them song lines, which
Nice.
I love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's in a very, very amazing area. And we had a friend, I had a friend who was connected to the practice, who was kept saying, that would be a really good part of the world for one of these.
Mhm.
It's also the part of the world where the crop circles arise. I don't know if you
Mhm.
are aware of
Right.
the crop circles.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
They're like these usually geometric patterns that are made in the crops, the wheat and the other crops that grow all around that area, and
Mhm.
nobody can really explain it. So we ended up taking one of the little holy vessels to that area and had
Mhm.
some incredible ceremonies. And I can't reveal where it was buried because it wouldn't be proper. But we buried the vase, and it was quite an undertaking. And that night, we checked the crop circles, like what might have arisen in that time period. The most amazing one arose. And I have a picture of it in the book, actually, that is a perfect description of what we did.
Mhm.
Wow.
And nobody would ever know that,
Mhm.
because we're not publicly making that claim. But
Yeah.
um, and then over the time, the crop circle grew, and it just made this amazing kind of evolution of kind of reflecting how the vase could be affecting the land and also the wider cosmic uh, landscape.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's
Cosmic
incredible.
landscape. Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
what a beautiful sacred practice. It's reminding me a lot. I've been um listening and getting kind of these, messages reinforced of this other prophecy, which I think you're probably familiar with, from the tribes in South America, the Pachamama, and the renewal of the earth, and the, sort of arising of the female energy to balance the male energy, and the calamities of the earth, and the that it's going through in order to kind of rid some of the toxicity and the sort of past, I guess, um, patterns, in order to bring in a new sort of world, or new arising of energy, and that people are really, it's just come to me from so many different people recently, just so much, even in my own practice, in my own spiritual practice, just a real connection to the earth, and this earth goddess, and her, like, messages, and crying, and calling.
Yeah.
And I feel it's so strong. It's coming so strong right now.
Hmm.
And so I think your book is in perfect timing with the coming of this wave of remembering, I think,
Hmm.
that we actually are the earth, and
Yes.
we're not separate from it.
Yes.
And it's a powerful message in all of these experiences you've had of this interconnection with animals, and, energy, and the plants, and the earth itself,
Hmm.
um, are just reinforcing how important our human consciousness is, to remember that we actually are from the earth, and we are the earth, and it's sacred um our sacred, I guess, duty to protect her, and to honor her, and
Yeah.
to take care of her, and not abuse her, and
Yeah. Yeah.
rape her, and you know
Right.
do all kinds of terrible things to her, like we have been doing.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you just look around and open your eyes, you see that that is happening and has been happening, and that it's not gonna, um, we're not gonna be able to sustain life if we continue down that path. So
Mhm.
these prophecies and these kinds of awakenings are happening to many, many, many of us, And I feel like this is really a time for a collective awakening.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, we're in it together. We all see that now. We see
Mhm.
that we're
Yeah.
connected. We see that we're all, it's not going to just be one savior, it's
No.
it's really all of us going, okay. I mean, I took treasure vases to all kinds of amazing places like I've just described, but I also took them into very difficult places. And one of those places was Congo, the
Mm.
Democratic Republic of Congo, which is considered, sadly, the rape capital of the world,
Yeah.
where the abuse of women and the earth is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And I wanted to address that issue as kind of one of the core wounds of the earth. If we're talking about bringing healing and protection and
Mhm.
renewal to the earth, there are certain things that need to end, you know.
Mhm.
And so the rape of women and the rape of the earth, I mean, Congo having the highest percentage of these incredible mineral resources and the second largest rainforest in the world outside of Brazil. Um, it's a place that needs protection. And
Yeah.
so we took a treasure vase there, and I write about that in the book as well. It was an amazing journey, and one of the outcomes of that was teaching this. There's a group called Hero Women Rising, founded by this amazing woman that I have become very close to, who helped me when I went there, Nema Namadamu. And she, I talked about how important Congo's forests were, for example. The
Mhm.
For the air that we breathe here, it's
Yeah.
dependent on these forests. And so her group, Hero Women Rising, learned how to do tree planting. And there, she's all about empowering the women, and we've worked closely together. And this is just one aspect of empowering the women, but the tree planting is ongoing. And it was a little awakening, on that level of what is called for, and now it goes on. So just another sort of more tangible example of what can come. And these things just arise, it's just like you just follow the breadcrumbs and
Yeah.
you start. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing thing because the vision and the calling is so big that you almost can't even fathom,
Right.
like, the outcome or the calling itself or what is needed, and if you try to think about it, it almost paralyzes you into doing nothing because
Exactly.
it is so big, and you're just like, nothing I do can really help this," and so what you're doing is so beautiful because it's giving these tiny steps, and as you take the tiny steps, the path continues to unfold, and it continues to grow. And
Well, I wonder if you could help us with that. Like, so you're on. y- You said that the ETVs were sent to you, and were they sent to you in New Mexico at the time? Is that where you were?
Yeah.
And so you're there. You probably have a community in place already, maybe a Tibetan Buddhist community there, and then they arrive in the mail as packages. And so, what's your next step then? Like, what was your very first one, and how did you come to decide on that? And I wonder also about the resources that have to be accumulated
Yeah.
and fundraised for the
Right.
immensity of it to send you to Congo, for example.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I know. It's taken 35 years,
Hmm.
So yeah, originally the vases arrived in these trunks, these metal trunks from Nepal, covered and stuffed with coconut fiber, and the little pots came to me that way. And I was so overwhelmed, I literally put them in the closet. It's
Hmm.
like, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm not ready.
Right.
So I went into my own deep practice for, I mean, it goes on, but I felt like, I just need to prepare my own vessel for this
Mhm.
assignment. And eventually it was probably, I mean, there was a good decade where I was mostly doing that. And the treasure vases only started coming out slowly after maybe 5 or 6 years. It's
Mhm.
like, because then we started having the signs of the fires burning over by the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the forest fires, and the
Mhm.
droughts. And, all of these things started happening. And it was like, nobody was coming forward to do it for us and to
Mhm.
tell us how to do this. We had to figure it out. And I do have a sangha, a community. At the time
Mhm.
it was called the Open Way Sangha.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
now we're called the Gaia Mandala Global Healing Community.
Mhm.
And where all the treasure vases have gone all around the world, each node in the earth is like a node on this mandala, creating this in a sense web of light, with all of our prayers going out into and then being planted into the meridians and the song lines and the ley lines of the earth.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so it's a very living thing. But in any case, back in the beginning, the first place that we went was up above in the hills, right up above Los Alamos National Laboratory.
Mhm.
And we found an incredible location. And there were some Tibetan monks from Dharamsala that happened to be here at the time, and they helped bury that first vase with all the proper rituals and everything. And then we put one in to the north at the source of the Rio Grande River, which is in
Mhm.
southern Colorado, because sources of rivers are supposed to
Mhm.
carry the prayers.
Mhm.
Nice.
And then we put one at the mouth of the Rio Grande River where it empties into the Gulf of Mexico. So then they go out. And then on top of the two highest mountains to the east and west in this region, the Rio Grande bioregion. So tops of mountains are really good as well. And so that formed the center and the four directions of what then became this global healing mandala. And so
Mhm.
from there, they began to go out in all these different directions. And um, that's how it started. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's some supports required to maintain a community of monks and nuns, and I wonder if that's a part of the support structure that goes into creating the resources to send an ETV to another location and to another
Well,
continent.
we, so I started a nonprofit organization. It's
Mhm.
called Alliance for the Earth. And we had to seek funding to support this. And
Mhm.
originally, when it all started, it was just me, kind of
Mhm.
doing my thing. And I had enough personal resources to go a little ways down the path. And I
Mhm.
Yeah.
did. And then I basically burned through it.
Yeah.
What I had to work with. And it became clear that if I was going to do this, I had to fundraise. And
Yeah.
so then that process began, and that went on for a long time, and still goes on. The nonprofit Alliance for the Earth has grown slowly over the years, and now with this global community, the Gaia Mandala community, we offer a number of meditations, including the Earth Treasure Vase location that we do every full moon, and mindfulness practice. And I now teach a practice. Maybe I can say a few things about that later, but
Yeah.
the Gaia, Sublime Mother Gaia practice. So another meditation that connects us directly with forming a relationship with the earth.
Mhm.
And so in any case, people now contribute to participate in those. They're all offered freely, but we like to ask
Yeah,
people
make a donation.
to
Mhm.
do that. So
Nice.
so that's one way that it continues, and then we hope that others will come forward in more meaningful ways in as needed. So some of the pilgrimages are like the one to Delphi that I did a year ago or so. That I took a group, and we worked together to prepare and then went. And so, the cost of the pilgrimage was more or less covered through the group coming together around that particular treasure vase.
Mm-hmm.
But some of like Congo, I wasn't prepared to take a group to Congo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
Real
That
dangerous place
seems
to go. Yeah.
a
So
little risky.
yeah, I had to fundraise for that. And
Yeah.
I also went to another country in Africa called Liberia that is a very
Yeah.
dangerous place. It was a very intensely terrible civil war that took place there. And I was invited to go to work with some peace builders after the Civil War, and ended up meeting all these people there, including former combatants in the war, and one former general,
I
who,
saw the photos of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and he asked me to teach him how to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Wow.
was so amazed. I didn't think he was serious, but he was. And so I've been working with him and a number of people in Liberia ever since. So it's been over a decade now. And
Mm-hmm.
we buried a treasure vase in a village in the worst fought area of the war, up in the northern part of the country, sharing border with Guinea and Sierra Leone. So it was a very conflicted region. And we buried the treasure vase. When it was all over, the elders said, we want to remember that this was really important.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we ended up building a peace hut, which is a
Yeah.
traditional structure around open
Mm.
walled structure where people go in a community to resolve conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
now we raised the money to build 5 peace huts in different regions of Liberia, and
Wow.
now have dug also wells, because they have to all the time walk far away and the water's not clean, so we've dug wells in relationship to the peace huts. And the
Well,
practice of mindfulness has been a tool for teaching peace building. So
Yeah.
that's been an incredible story as well.
but if I had
Yeah.
a sense that perhaps like Temple Beth Am in Merrick, Long Island, was a place that was very personal to me, and I feel like that would be a place for one of an earthen treasure vase. How do you go about doing that? Do you have a vision for it, a feeling for it, and you say, "Well, I'll have to call the rabbi and ask him if this is all right." How do you make the connection once you have the understanding that there's a sense that it should be there?
Well, you follow those breadcrumbs. So at this point we have a guiding council that
Hmm.
is dedicated to responding to people's requests.
Mhm.
And now we don't have any that are already made.
Hmm.
So it would require making one.
Hmm.
And as I told you in the beginning, I'm thinking we're going to potentially offer that as another, fourth generation. So you
Hmm.
would you would write up what it is you're called to do,
Hmm.
and where you're feeling like really needs one of these, and why.
Hmm.
Why
Yeah.
Temple Beth whatever,
Hmm.
in Long Island,
Yeah.
and what your connection is there, and how what sort of community support you would have for this,
Hmm.
and I mean, nowadays we really invite people to make also relations with the local indigenous people of the
Hmm.
lands that you go to, because that is also one of those core wounds that needs to be
Hmm.
healed,
Yeah.
around um, the lands that we inhabit, and so there's that. And then you just start putting one foot in front of the other. You make your vase, you learn the practice, come to the full moon and learn the practice. We also share the practice so you can teach it or share it, gather people
Mm.
around and do the
Hmm.
meditation, and then invite people to make offerings into the vase,
Hmm.
because the vase is not buried until it's completely full with
Mhm.
offerings that are symbolic of healing and protection for the earth and for that
Hmm.
particular location. And then,
Mm,
it's filled and sealed and then taken there. And sometimes people take their treasure vases on little pilgrimages around the region or where it's going to
mhm,
go to gather energy and blessings, or bring it to elders or, the rabbi or whoever it is that, you would like to bless this little holy vessel, and
Mm.
when it goes, you do the meditation, you open it up and it goes around the circle, and everybody just pours their hearts into these little things. It's like
mm,
they're sort of like ambassadors that kind of open the way. And then, as I said earlier, they're sort of become very alive once they start to get filled, because they're filled with all this intention,
mhm,
Mm.
and
mhm,
and then you start to feel it, and it's an invitation for people who connect with the practice to really get in touch with what they love and care about so much, that they want to see it protected or
mm,
healed, or this renewal, this balance, this harmony to come to that
mhm,
area as well. So it's a tool to do all of that.
Mm.
mm. I was imagining people would put, like, prayers, like, written prayers, but it sounds also like they might put, like, herbs
Hmm.
or stones or, like, different
Crystals.
crystals, yeah,
Yeah,
different.
like precious things. Um,
Yeah.
something that is symbolic
Mhm.
of healing and protection. So, yeah, my husband is an acupuncturist also, so he's putting acupuncture needles in there sometimes.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
like acupuncture. It is a kind of acupuncture for the planet too.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
you dig a
yeah.
hole and you put this in, and it's like there it is, giving
Mm.
this energy into the earth.
Activating the meridians. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
It also, makes me think about this, I forget what the study's called, but they one of the studies where they had transcendental, meditation meditators go into areas and meditate, and it reduces the crime rates in the
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
And I'm feeling like this is sort of a similar type of practice, where everyone's sort of meditating and focusing all of their energy and putting it into this little vase,
yep,
and also then transferring that to a location
yep,
somewhere on the planet itself. And
yep,
so that's like a very, yeah, it seems very similar that, whoa. It
yep.
seems very similar that that would then, lead to kind of more peaceful vibrations in the area and also attract other
Exactly. In fact,
people.
that's so interesting you mentioned that, because I was involved with a group in Los Angeles years
Oh,
ago
cool.
that was doing that. The
Yeah.
with the police department, there was a whole study going on that we
Yeah.
were helping with.
Mm.
So that's so true. So, and the other thing that happens is when people are invited to offer something into
Mhm.
the vase, um, whether it's an offering they put in it, or a prayer or an intention, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it, that really activates us to get in
Mhm.
touch with what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
What we want, what we care about.
Yeah.
And so the vase is like a little seed that gets planted in the ground. But then there's this other seed in us that also gets awakened, in
Mhm.
Mhm.
relationship to that, the community you live in, or the forest that you love, or
Yeah.
the war zone that you are concerned about, or whatever it happens
Mhm.
to be. And so then what is your offering? What is your calling? How are you
Yeah.
being summoned?
Yeah,
We
it's
we
powerful.
talk about that in puja, don't we? When the pujari um, spends the morning awakening the deity, cleansing the deity, feeding the deity, and then opening all of the five senses and awakening the five senses. Really, what we're doing that for ourselves, and we're awakening
Yeah,
our own God nature in ourselves for the day.
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's it's critical that we take advantage of that opportunity in the morning.
It is. You're right. And it's good
And
good medicine. Yeah.
yeah. And the Dalai Lama also blessed your project as well, I think, right?
Yes, he did. It was incredible. When I went to Australia, uh,
Yeah.
and I've been now 3 times and going back again next winter. Um, but Australia is a whole continent, and it was like, well, we got to take one there. And that trip, I also have a whole chapter about in the book. It was an incredibly beautiful experience going there. And there I met an elder who made me her daughter, and she's my adopted mother. She's now no longer alive, but she made us all family inside of this global healing community. So we have this sense of such a deep connection, and the vase got buried in a really amazing way up in the Northern Territory, and then that was just after that I received this second generation, and she invited us to come back the next year to bury the first of the 4 that I
Mm.
brought to Australia, because everybody was so engaged by this practice and this whole family that we now had. And so they've gone around in the 4 corners of Australia. And the first place that we went with one of those that generation of vases was a 50,000-year-old rock shelter in northern Arnhem Land that she was the custodial elder of.
Wow.
And it's just this, beyond words kind of place from the folds of time, going back 50,000 years. And we have a vase there. But on that pilgrimage, when I went back to do that with her and with the whole family, um, we went to Uluru. And actually, I forgot one part of the original story. In the first trip, we started in Sydney, and the Dalai Lama was giving teachings in Sydney, and so we attended those teachings. And my Australian brother, one of my 3 brothers that now, who organized the trip, managed to he knew the organizers, and so he managed to get our little Earth Treasure vase to perch on the altar of these public
Amazing.
teachings in Sydney when the Dalai Lama was there. And so the Dalai Lama stopped one day and picked it up and went, oh, you're so cute, the way he does. And
Yeah.
he just like patted it, and blessed it and gave it his attention. And it was just such a beautiful gift. And he learned about what we were doing. And then we learned that he wanted to go to Uluru, the Ayers Rock, or
Mhm.
Uluru,
Yeah.
in the central desert of Australia, and we went there too. We went there on the first trip, and met another elder, Uncle Bob Randall, who blessed the vase and us and our pilgrimage. And then we went on to Northern Territory. When we came back the second time, we went to Uluru with Auntie Margaret, and that's when the Dalai Lama came to Uluru for the first time, and he was there, and we were there, and he met our group, and I introduced him to Auntie Margaret, and they stood and just held hands and gazed into each other's eyes, and it was just this such a beautiful meeting at this one of the sacred places at
Yeah.
Uluru. And oh, it was just it's so beautiful. So yes, that happened. And you know these blessings that carry us where we need to
Mhm.
go, and that certainly happened
Yeah.
for me.
Magic moments.
Yeah.
Well, those stories and many more available in your book, Summoned by the Earth, Becoming a
You have to
Holy
lift that.
Vessel for Healing Our World, by Lama Cynthia Jurs. And I imagine
Oh. She just disappeared. Shit.
We lost the connection.
That was so beautifully done. Right
It
on
was like
time.
magic.
It was just like magic by Lama Cynthia Jurs, and she just disappeared. Poof. Well, thank you. So I hope we got that recording.
I
I'm not
think,
sure
well,
that we did.
yeah, we will,
But thank you again so much for stopping for just a moment on your journey to spend time with us.
And if people want to stop and spend time with you, they can find you on full moons and tell us a little bit about how to do that. Because your
Yeah.
practices and these meditations, I think many listeners will want to participate. They sound incredible.
Thank you. Well, I hope so. The place to go is gayamandala.net. And there you can find it all. You can subscribe to the newsletter, which we send out just before every full moon, letting people know what our focus will be for that full moon. And then we do this meditation. And we always open up a treasure vase so people can, offer their own prayers and intentions for that particular vase. And then there's, all these other practices that I mentioned that we offer. And the newsletter is a way to stay connected. We also have an online community on the Mighty Networks for the Gaia Mandala. So it's another way to connect and learn more. And I'll be doing I don't know when your podcast will go out. I'm doing a retreat to teach the Sublime Mother Gaia practice in upstate New York. The very last weekend of September.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
And giving a talk at Tibet House in New York City on the full moon in September. And many more, just a lot's happening. So,
beautiful.
Our friend Dr. John Campbell was teaching out of the Tibet House. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of meeting him, but maybe you two will visit when you're there.
Maybe I don't know him, but
Right.
The founder of Tibet House and the Menla Retreat Center is Robert Thurman, professor of Tibetan studies.
Of all things wild and wonderful.
I did. I had the pleasure of studying the Diamond Sutra at the Tibet House with with Bob.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we're going to be activating a treasure vase that was buried in New York City after 9/11 on this trip in September, too. And kind of it's been there, but we want to go to the location and feed it.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah. So that'll be happening too. So, come to gayamandala.net and
gayamandala.net.
involved. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. And people can find you in person in upstate New York at the end of September.
They can, and
New York City too.
And New York City too. And I'm not sure how much of that information is on the retreat is definitely on the website Gaia Mandala. There's also a book website which gives you information about the book. It's called summonedbytheearth.org. Yep. And that's where I have a lot of the podcasts posted, and this will be there. And then like the Tibet House event is listed there, and a lot of other things about the book and the map and all of those things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes so people can find them. And thank you. It would be so wonderful to connect with you in person one day.
I hope that could happen. I've enjoyed meeting you both a lot. It's been a great time. Yeah. So to be continued.
That was just so amazing. What a fun conversation. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. If you would love to go deeper and take your practice off your yoga mat and into your life, into the world, starting to learn more about pranayama, developing a regular practice, chanting, tuning into the vibrations and the Sanskrit mantras, as well as looking at some of the more esoteric philosophical concepts, come on in to my Inner Circle mentorship. This is a private community that's online. I offer weekly Mysore classes in addition to these monthly workshops and special programs. And you can find out all the information when you join the Finding Harmony community. Head on over to community-harmonyslater.com. Join the community and come on into my Inner Circle mentorship. I would love for you to be a part of this beautiful space and start growing into the full richness of this yoga practice together with me. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.